Hello, Mayor, Council members, and community. This is Sue Hagener, your Finance Director. And today we're going to talk about compliance with our most significant financial policies for the year 2024. That includes our cash and investment policy, our debt management policy, and our required reserves or fund balance policy. These policies were created by researching best practices and state auditor requirements. And their purpose is to protect city assets, to ensure compliance with state and other relevant laws, and to promote the long-term financial health of the city. And these reports that we provide to you today demonstrate our commitment towards those objectives. So first, let's take the cash and investment policy. It is the policy of the city to invest public funds in a manner which provides the highest investment return with maximum security while meeting the daily cash flow requirements and conforming to all state and local statutes governing the investment of public funds. The primary objectives, in order of priority, for the city's investment activities are as follows. First of all, legality. The city's investments will be in compliance with all statutes governing the investment of public funds in the state of Washington. 2, liquidity. The city's investments will remain sufficiently liquid to enable the city to meet all operating requirements which might be reasonably anticipated. 3, safety. Investments of the city will be undertaken in a manner that seeks to ensure the preservation of capital in the overall portfolio. To attain this objective, diversification is required in order that potential losses on individual securities do not exceed the income generated from other investments. And finally, yield. The city's investments will be designed with the objective of obtaining a market rate return throughout the budgetary and economic cycles, while taking into account the city's investment risk constraints and cash flow characteristics. And for the purpose of this policy, a fair rate of return will be the band between the average yield of the 90-day Treasury bill and the 2-year Treasury note for the period of time being evaluated. And the goal is for the portfolio to generally perform within or above the band. I will note, however, these are interesting times as the shorter term 90-day Treasury is actually outperforming the 2-year Treasury. So now let's talk about our cash and investments as of the end of the year. So as of December 31, 2024, we had about $28 million in cash and investments, which is down from the previous year by about 15% due to significant capital project expenditure activity. This capital activity reduced our cash balances from about $12 million down to $6 million. We also have about $2.5 million in the Local Governmental Investment Pool, or LGIP, which is managed by the state. And also we have about $19 million in actual investments, like treasuries, local governmental bonds, or certificates of deposit. What we've got for 2024 is that the city's investments appropriately meet the requirements of state law and our investment policy. However, the city's rate of return did fall below benchmarks for the fair rate of return established by policy. This, frankly, is due to the wacky interest rate market for the several years that the Federal Reserve has significantly increased short-term interest rates, although recently rates are coming down. That means the investment that we already had on hand would perform at a lower rate than the current investment market. This is what continued to happen in 2024. I will mention that we've adjusted our investment strategy in consideration of this. We do expect to see a correction in the city's performance as interest rates are lowered. This next slide shows our total cash and investment balances as of the end of the year compared to previous years. The green line indicates our cash on hand. The yellow line represents our balance in the local government investment pool. And the green line represents, or the gray line, I should say, the gray line represents our investments. The most notable thing about this is the reduction in cash from 2022 to 2024, which is primarily due to the spending down of cash reserves on capital projects. That large green line in 2022 also includes ARPA funds, which are being spent down on the city shop improvement project and technology projects, consistent with the ARPA spending plan approved by council in, I believe it was 2022. So you can see the green line is getting lower due to some large cash expenditures on capital projects. Okay, moving on to our debt policy. The debt management policy identifies the city's approach to managing debt. Adherence to the policy is essential to ensure that the city maintains a sound and legal debt position and protects the credit quality of all of its obligations. Our policy mirrors all of the statutory requirements. So when we're talking about general obligation debt, this is the debt that is secured by the full faith and credit of the entire organization. And there's a variety of types of general obligation debt, but we're going to talk about what is termed non-voted debt because that's the only kind of GO debt we have. And it represents the bond that we took out on the Civic Center project. Again, this is debt that's taken on without a vote of the people. And the legal limits on general obligation debt are not to exceed 1.5% of the assessed property tax values within the city. And as you can see on this slide, we are in compliance with both state requirements on GO debt and with the state auditor's guidance for water and sewer debt that has no legal limits. It should be noted that all borrowing, even including short-term debt, is subject to council approval. So this schedule is what the state auditor calls the Schedule 9, and it lists all of the liabilities of the city during the year, including loans, as well as compensated absences, which I'll talk about here in a second. Down the left-hand side, you'll see a description of the loan or debt, followed by its maturity date, and then there's the beginning balance as of the first of the year, any new or additions to that debt, then any reductions in debt or pay down in principal, and then the final balance as of the end of the year. So you can see that we had a total of $13 million in total liabilities as of the end of the year. A word about compensated absences. This represents the total amount that the city would have to pay out in the unlikely event that all of its employees were to leave the city or quit or be separated from the city as of the end of the year. The total balance here is $884,000, which is down about $91,000 from the prior year. Now let's talk about fund balance policy. Fund balance can also be referred to as reserves. It can also be referred to as ending cash and investments. Those terms are used interchangeably. What is fund balance? Well, fund balance is an approximate measure of liquidity. It is a cornerstone of financial flexibility and provides the city with options to respond to unexpected issues and provides a buffer against fiscal challenges. It is the intent of the city to provide a stable financial environment for its citizens, for which its citizens can depend on a consistent and quality level of service, and it's also for planned future expenditures. I'm responsible for monitoring reserve levels and reporting current and projected reserves during each budget development cycle. The purpose of this policy is to establish an understanding of the proper level and use of those reserves for the city. Adequate levels of fund balance or reserves are essential to protect against temporary revenue shortfalls, or to help ensure stable taxes and fees. It also provides resources that are crucial in long-term financial and capital planning. On that note, this graph is a visual demonstration of why we need a fund balance policy. This is a graph that shows the monthly revenues to the general fund over a 3-year period. And you can see on the left-hand side of the graph, you'll see a monthly revenue in February of about $583,000. That was back in 2017, but the graph still means the same thing. And then in the middle of the graph, you see a monthly revenue of $1.3 million, right? So that's a fluctuation of over $800,000. So as month-to-month revenues can vary significantly, we need fund balance to support expenditures all the same. And that's why we have a fund balance policy. Now this slide shows a snapshot of the fund balance policies for the general fund and streets, water unrestricted, and sewer unrestricted. And you can see that there are 3 main elements that we calculate. Number 1, minimum fund balance provides a financial cushion for revenue fluctuations and cyclical activity through general operations, like the previous slide I showed you. Number 2, economic uncertainty. It provides a financial cushion against unanticipated adverse financial or economic circumstances, emergency and/or something like litigation. And finally, future liabilities. These amounts are set aside for a specified purpose related to an accrued obligation or to self-insure for a future obligation. This should include reserves for a portion of accrued compensation. Remember, I talked about compensated absences, which is paid time off and sick leave, that basically is paid to an employee upon separation. And this slide shows the actual calculations for the general fund, streets, water ops, and sewer ops ending fund balances. Now, towards the bottom of the calculations, you can see that green arrow where you've got the actual ending fund balance for each of the funds that I talked about. And right above that, you'll see the target reserve per policy. There's a minimum, so for example, on the general fund, there's a minimum target reserve of $2.2 million and a maximum of $3.4 million. Well, we've got an actual ending fund balance of $3.9 million. That actually exceeds policy maximum. Streets, that's pretty much right at the midpoint of policy. Same with water operations. And sewer operations is towards the top of that range. But overall, in really good standing and in really good financial health for all of our operational funds. Thanks for listening today, and as always, I'm here to answer any questions you have.